Hello and welcome to our last session of our Fall 2023 Fall Assessment Day. So for those of you who are just tuning in, our goal for this assessment day is to combine two different fields. So our motto for this year is #StrongerAssessment to make even better, even more awesome assessments than we've already been doing. But also, we are so grateful for the assessment resources that we have, for the people that have helped us in our assessment, and for all of you who are here right now watching this. So we are grateful for stronger assessment, and that is our goal for today. And in that same vein, we have invited five technically. So 4 sessions with 5 speakers. So you get to hear about some really great examples of assessment. And I would be remiss not to do some of our housekeeping work. So in the spirit of Fall Assessment Day, we have different goals that we have for you. So our goals are, 1, that you pump yourself up by attending these events. You're doing it right here, getting your exercise on. 2, meditate and reflect upon the yoga mat of life and think about what you've learned here in assessment day so that you can apply it. And then for you overachievers, we have 2 awesome goodies. We have assessment stickers and assessment magnets that can be earned by completing a simple Padlet of telling us 1 thing you're currently doing to make your assessment stronger, or 2, something you plan to do in the future. So without further ado, we'll get started. Okay. Ooh. I think I'm 1 slide ahead of myself. Oh, let's back it up. All right, so our assessment day success stories is the presentation that you're in right now. And what is a success story? It is any story where you get to tell us about assessment, because even a failed assessment is a success story because it helps us to see what we could be doing better in the classroom or outside of the classroom for our students. It helps students determine how they're retaining that knowledge, and it can help our staff members better guide students. So any assessment, big or small, could be a success story, and we're going to hear some examples today. The first example that we're going to hear is from our pair of Inas, as Karen says. So Tina LeBaron and Gina Weatherly from the TCS department are going to tell us a little bit about what they have done. So I'm going to pass it over to y'all.
Thank you. Gina, are you able to share, or would you like me to?
Roxanne, you need to stop sharing.
Oh, thank you. All right, so I will share. Hopefully you can see that. Zoom can be, perfect, is my nemesis on days and my best friend on others. So today, my best friend. So just to give you a little bit of information, Technology and Consumer Sciences has multiple programs within it. And one of the programs, or an area, is Child and Family Studies. And we have 2 programs. We have Family Life Education and Early Childhood Education. So Gina Weatherly is the program director for Family Life, and I am the program director for Early Childhood. And because our students swim in both pools, we share a lot of our students. They cross over quite a bit between the 2 degrees and programs. And we teach on both sides of the house for each other. So there are 3 people that I want to make sure that we name, myself, but Gina Weatherly, and then Judy Basham, who is Child and Family Studies faculty. And she, again, we all teach for both sides. And so jumping in to, so you're not the only one who's had to skip away from them. The reason that we started in, we've always been involved with our assessment, but we've always evaluated or assessed separate courses, and we've never had an opportunity to look at our programs with a wider lens and really find where are the gaps or the lags in our programs. And so going through a national accreditation for the early childhood degree gave us this opportunity to really pull back the blankets and see what was going on as far as what are the crosses, where are the students showing pitfalls in learning. And we wanted to make sure that not only are we identifying the gaps, but what are those gaps? Are they workforce readiness gaps? Are they gaps within the accreditation terms, and so on? And so what we were trying to do is really build a better bridge between ILO assessment and then the NACCE accreditation. Gina, did you want to add anything?
No, I think just going through accreditation, like you said, makes you open your eyes a little bit more to assessment in general, what we're assessing, why we're assessing. And I think, like Tina said, just the idea to marry the ILO with workforce readiness, it made sense as we were going through it.
And so what that looked like is between myself, Gina, and Judy, we were really collaborating, locating resources. And then we met with Karen Bird in the summer of 2022 to develop a plan, because we were like, okay, these are our small little gaps and this is what we want to do. But that wasn't clear to us until we had a conversation with a coworker. So someone within our department, Andrea Schreier, and she works in Cisco, and she had developed an ILO assessment with Karen Bird. And so she was talking us through how she did it. And then we were making connections. We were able to say, like, through that collaboration, we were like, oh my goodness, we can do this. And we could follow your guideline, and then we can assess throughout our program or throughout that degree program, and we can do the same assessment multiple times to see the growth of our students. And so there are some NACCE documents. There were 5 that we used, and we were able to speckle them into certain courses with an ILO assessment. And now we're going to be able to gauge, although we just started it in spring of 23, now we'll be able to start collecting data to find out how these students are learning and growing throughout their time within our program. And so we identified the potential alignment with NACCE documents, and then we used the ILL W1, the awareness assessment of occupational fit. And then we attended assessment weeks. We've done all of these virtual things. We met with Roxan. So we tried to make sure that our collaborations were really super tight, and our understanding of how we were going to implement the process was there. And then we met with the adjuncts. We got them on board. We let them know. We created a shell, and we created the master copy in the shell, and then they just copy over that assessment into their courses. And then we created the ILL rubrics, which helps us track the data. And so, Gina, I feel like I'm missing something. Am I missing anything?
I don't think so. I think just the process as we go through it, and you're going to show the next slide, and I think we'll be able to talk about how they're seeing those 5 documents throughout their pathway.
Yep. And so although Gina and I have built some collaborations in some cohorts with our general studies, this is kind of how our pathway looks if you break it out to the 2 certificates and then the final gen eds to finish out their associate's degree. Basically, we wanted to kind of show what that would look like with our first certificate, our second certificate, and then the gen ed courses. And so you can see how the different color we highlighted them because we thought that might be the best to draw the eye. But it really kind of speckles through, and so it'll show growth. And our students are normally, I know it's a 2-year degree, but our students are with us about 6 to 8 years, just because they are a working population. And so their semesters, they're not able to take as many courses each semester. So it's not like they would have these courses back to back. It would be a growth process. And so anything, Gina?
Yeah, and the way that we did it, based on the pathway and the course recommendations as they go through, they'll be seeing each one of these 5 documents 3 times. So we'll be able to get a baseline, a midpoint, and then an endpoint. So obviously, the base point, we're not expecting them to be at the top. They're going to be developing, right? We're not going to be expecting more than that. And that way we can see not only their understanding of the terms through NACCE, but also their growth as a professional to be workforce ready.
Most of our students coming into our program now, this is the first time that they're seeing NACCE documents, and sometimes accreditation documents are not the most user-friendly to students. They're not written to a comprehension level that we're used to. And so by layering it, we're able to expose them multiple times. And then we also created activities in the classroom to break it down to simplest form. All right, so the big thing is everyone's like, oh, so it's perfect? Nope, it's not perfect. It's not perfect, and we'll tell you why. So the things that Gina and I immediately identified was we needed to calibrate grading. There was definitely some professional development that needed to be done with faculty grading these assessments, because some of us have super big hearts and we were like, oh, they gave it a college try. And some of us were like, they didn't understand it. So we wanted to make sure that we calibrated that down to where we were actually measuring what we needed to measure. The other thing is a lot of the adjuncts that we met with, they were like, wait, hold on a second. They can submit the same assignment over and over again. And Gina's normally really good at catching things. And I was a little taken back when it came to us, and I was like, oh gosh, I guess I could. But the way we design the questions is really for them to answer. So it's designed as 2 questions. The first one is a summary, but the next one is an application. So they really should be speaking about where they are currently. And since we have such a good finger on the pulse with our students, we should be able to determine if that information is accurate and up to date. So is it 100%? No, by no stretch of the imagination. Are we proud of where we're at? Absolutely, because I think it took some time for us to get there, identify some barriers or obstacles that we were just coming across. And I think there was a moment of exhaustion going through an accreditation and then tackling assessment and making sure that we were weaving everything in. And so we were so happy that Karen Bird and Roxanne, they were able to sit down with us, and they were like, okay, hold on. I think you're putting the cart before the horse. And they would, they would help us out by identifying things that we didn't have to necessarily have in place, or things that we were stressing about that we didn't need to be stressing about, and then showing us how to implement it a different way. And so those ideas were really helpful, because it helped us clear the air, not only with ourselves or between ourselves, but then sharing it out and training others. Gina?
Yeah, and I was just going to say that also in one of the questions, the second question that they have to answer, they also have to apply what they're learning from that specific course and how it develops them as a professional in the field. So again, there's always going to be that part of it that's going to be different. And I think we have seen, even just, I've had a couple of students where they're taking one assessment the second time, and I have seen a growth even in their writing and their ability to articulate what some of these, really high, some of them are very long documents, but being able to really pick out the main points. So I think it is working. Like Tina said, there's always room for improvement, but that's what assessment is. So.
Perfect. And then we just added our contact information, because I think sometimes it's nice to see that if you need to reach out to us and ask us any questions. Otherwise, we're available chat too. All right.
I love it. Great job. So if you could give one piece of advice to another department who wants to follow in your awesome footsteps, what piece of advice would you offer to them?
Ooh, 2 pieces of advice. Don't be afraid to collaborate, and don't be afraid to reach out for help. So bouncing ideas off someone is a lot better than racking your head against a wall.
And again, meet with your assessment coordinators, because we met with Andrea, who was in our department. She had a great idea, and we're like, oh, the workforce, that fits with what our students are doing too. So I think, like Tina said, reach out to other people and don't be afraid to try something. I think sometimes I get afraid, oh, if it's not right, or what if it's terrible? Well, then if it's terrible, then we go back to the drawing table, and I think that's okay.
Yeah, and we also have a really good relationship with Dr. Smith, Dr. Shannon Smith. She's our DAC in our program, or in our department, and she gave us those tools too. Roxanne, she sat in on those meetings with us, and so she's always been our biggest cheerleader. So that's always been helpful as well.
Yeah, she's been really supportive and said, hey, try it,
Oh,
and then share what you're doing, right? So yeah, go Shannon.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much. So I know that y'all have another meeting that you have to head out to, but if anyone does have questions, you can pop them into the chat and we will forward them on, or they've given you their contact information so you could utilize that as well.
Perfect. Thank
Great,
you.
thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Our next presenter is also a faculty member. I want to make sure that I get all of the... There we go. On to the next slide. Also a faculty member in our fitness and wellness department. So this is Aaron Freed, who has graciously volunteered to share his assessment efforts with us as well. So Aaron, I'll pass it over to you and stop sharing now.
Sounds good. Thank you. Let me go ahead and share mine with you. So our assessment for our department is taken some different turns over the last few years. We've tried some different types of assessment. We're, just like some other departments, very diverse in some of the courses that we offer. So we don't have the ability to create one type of assessment to be able to roll out for every one of our courses. So our assessment started by meeting with our department assessment coordinators and Roxanne. We felt that this was an important step. This is, I just heard the last question of what advice I would have. This is my advice. Meet with the people that are able to demystify assessment. It can seem daunting. It can seem very complex. But if you really look at the steps, if you think about where we can really improve our courses and where we want to improve our courses, it makes sense as you go along. So our goal of that meeting was to learn the tool and to really wrap our heads around the tool, and then also do some brainstorming on some different types of assessments that we can do. We break our assessments down by prefix. We have multiple prefixes, and a lot of other departments do as well. Our major prefixes are our exercise science, our PED courses, which are our activity courses, then our health science. So we break those major prefixes down. We're not trying to overwhelm our adjuncts or our residential faculty or our department assessment coordinators as well by trying to get everything done all at one time. So we really focus on one. We still do the assessments each year, and we still try to get as much participation as possible, but we're really trying to focus on creating new types of assessment or working on our tool with each prefix as we go. This allows us to be able to share that information with our adjuncts and our dual enrollment instructors a lot easier, so then we can include them as well. We try to make our assessments similar to our classes where we stack them. So our courses are set in a program for an AAS degree or an AA degree where we have stackable courses, right? The 101 class leads to the 125 class, which leads to the 200 classes, and they're stackable courses. And we try to look at our assessments the same. What do we want in class number 2? We should probably be assessing that in class number 1. in class number 6 and 7, we should probably have assessments in the earlier classes to make sure that when we get to that 6th and 7th class as part of our program, we've been able to assess the learning and assess if that's really what we've been working on with our students as we go. And we found that that can be a tricky task in some cases, especially when we have multiple instructors teaching multiple different disciplines. It takes a lot of communication, and it takes a lot of communicating with each other of what do you want to know? What do I need you to know? What do I want my students to know as they enter that course? But we try to make it as natural of a progression as possible. We don't try to force an assessment. We're not trying to assess anything that's outside of the norm. We really go back to our course competencies and just take a look and find out what is the absolute goal that we want a student to be able to achieve by the time they leave this course. We try to be as consistent as possible. We're not trying to come up with a different assessment for each instructor for each different course. And that was definitely a recommendation from our coordinators, and I know Roxanne as well, is if we have a course with 6 different instructors, be consistent. So we try to come up with a consistent assessment for each one of those courses. In some cases, it fits into classes better than others, but we've been able to work them in together. I personally was one of the holdouts on one of the assessments for our entry-level course, but now that I've been able to get that into my class, we've been able to see the data and we've been able to share that information, and admittedly so, it's been very beneficial. So trying to be consistent, trying to share that information. Again, it also goes to our adjuncts when we're trying to share information with our adjuncts, trying to give them a consistent message. They're there to teach their classes, and it's tough to reach them outside in some cases. Most of ours, like yours, are not necessarily on campus, but really trying to communicate with them, especially when we have different disciplines. We can teach a kickboxing class and we have yoga classes, and we're trying to create consistent assessments and different outcomes. So it can be a little tricky, but that's where our communication really plays a large role. We have many different types of assessments. We've learned that not one assessment can work with all of our classes. We have knowledge-based assessments in some of our earlier classes where maybe we have some test questions, we have some knowledge-based assessments, we have skill-based assessments in a lot of our clinical-based courses. And then we've even worked on a lifelong learning assessment of trying to gauge activity levels, especially in our activity classes for the future. Great, you took this activity course. Is this something that you're going to continue along in the future? So it's not necessarily looking just at a cross-sectional view. We're trying to look maybe longitudinally and figure out if this is something that will be effective for somebody in the future, which in that case of a physical activity class might be the goal. So going back to the tool, because that was one of our main goals of our meeting, I highly recommend meeting with an assessment coordinator, really getting the information to how to use the tool, going through. We were able to go through just about the entire tool, and I think we finished some of our assessments by the time we were done. Now we'll go back and be able to review in the coming semesters, but it was a very beneficial meeting to be able to, like I said earlier, to demystify, to be able to wipe the slate clean from what we've thought maybe we were assessing in the past, and really just stick to what is being asked and what's being assessed. That would be my large takeaway from my meeting with our assessment, with our department coordinators, and meeting with Roxanne as well, is to not be afraid to reach out and be able to try to have those conversations. And that's all that I have.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, so I have one question for you. So what did you learn from this assessment, and how will you utilize that going forward?
I mentioned earlier, I learned that it's okay and it should be recommended to stop sharing my screen here, to reach out and to not be afraid to reach out to the people who are living in the assessment world. It can be just tricky. It can be when you're thinking about different types of assessment. Me personally, I have a problem with overthinking. So I'm thinking that an assessment might have to be a earth-changing student changing experience, and in some cases it might not have to be. It might have to be, like I mentioned earlier, something natural, something that feeds into the course that we're doing a lot of anyway, that just needs to be brought out, and we need to be able to find that way to measure it. So that's one thing I learned a lot, was to reach out to the resources that I have available.
Yeah, I love that. Absolutely. And Erin's right. Assessment for most of us is not something that we do on a daily basis. So it can be difficult to remember all of the minutia of every report that you do. But I love Erin's phrasing. For those of us who live assessment, we are under the assessment water every day. So we're swimming in it. We can help you out, definitely. So you have your department coordinators in your specific department. We have our developers who can help with any department, any discipline area. And then Julie and I are also available to help out, and we love getting involved in it as well. We'll come on land every once in a while and help you out. Thank you, Erin. I appreciate it.
You.
Awesome. So far you have heard from 3 of our faculty members in 2 different departments, but assessment doesn't only happen in the classroom in the academic setting. Assessment happens everywhere, all over campus. So we wanted to do something a little bit different this year and show you the non-academic side of assessment. So our last 2 presenters are going to talk a little bit more about the co-curricular types of assessment that you'll be learning more about. If you attended some of our earlier sessions, you got to hear all about that fun stuff. So first up, we have Izelle Silva, who is representing Career Services. I know Izelle from working on the ECBL, the Experimental Community-Based Learning Committee. So I'm excited to hear a little bit more about what Izelle has to share with us. So let me unpin Erin and pin it over to Izelle. All right, Izelle, when you're ready.
Awesome, thank you. I guess I'm going to go a little rogue. I don't have a presentation, so I'm just going to share. Okay, great. I'm going to share a little bit of how we do assessments in our department. And of course, as you shared, assessment happens not just inside of the classroom, but also outside of the classroom. And that's what we are trying to do, is how do we assess all the learning that happens outside of the classroom in relation to our department. And whenever I share my assessment story, I always like to start by saying, like, data and assessment was never my thing. It wasn't something that ever came naturally to me. I'm like a picture ideas person naturally. And so it wasn't really until I had kind of like a mentor that really made me think a little bit more about being intentional with the programming that we developed. And since then, you know, when I started my role at GCC, it was thinking about, okay, what do we have and how can we assess what we're doing? And so obviously, a lot of what we offer through our department are things like workshops, events, appointments. And so we started naturally with our workshops. We have workshops in a variety of topics, so resume writing, job searching, interviewing, LinkedIn. And so it really was kind of stripping it down to the basics and identifying what is it that we want our students to learn and take out of this workshop that we're presenting to them. So it was starting from there and then identifying what are our learning outcomes that we hope to achieve, and then how can we create questions to then assess that. So with a lot of the workshops that we do at the very end of our workshop, we have a QR code now. We did the old paper pencil thing for a long time, right? So every time I would go to a classroom, I would have a stack of papers and I would pass it out. We've changed that a little bit. We have QR codes now and people scan it. But really it was doing that really helps us assess, are students learning what we're hoping that they're learning out of the workshops? And then we take that information, read through the assessments, read through the feedback, because it is both qualitative and quantitative. So we look at it and make sure students are learning what we are hoping that they will. And if they are not, then that is an indicator for us, maybe we need to elaborate more on some content areas. Maybe we need to communicate that a little bit differently. But then we also have that open section where, for them to provide us feedback. So, we really try to do that as much as possible with a lot of our workshops. But even as we create events, we also try to think about now, how can we assess, the events that we're doing as well. And the reason is twofold, I think, when it comes to our workshops and events and things that we do out of our department. One of the reasons, obviously, is what I mentioned, right? We want to make sure that students are learning what we hope that they're learning through how we're either presenting material or the events that we're doing. But we also do assessments, and we also try to collect data to help us tell our story to other people. And so hopefully you've seen some evidence of that. I know, like, one of the things that come to mind, especially when it comes specifically to programming, is Volunteer Month. We do Volunteer Month. This last April was the second year that we did Volunteer Month. And after every event, we had a simple, assessment that we would have people do to collect information. And that open-ended section was for us to share our story. And so I don't know if you remember or not, we sent a lot of emails during the time, but every Friday we would send out our impact email. We call it our impact email. So we would share all the wonderful things that happened during that week, and we would share student quotes. And the reason why we shared student quotes is because we want people to see the impact of the work that we're doing. So that's really why we try to assess what we're doing in our office. One, to help make sure that students are learning what we're hoping that they're going to learn through the workshops or events that we're doing or executing. And two, to help us share our story through communication that we send out to our campus community, whether that is about a presentation that we did, whether it's about an event that we did. So anyway, so that's kind of how we do things through our office. We do it through our workshops. When we're trying to create programming, it's really thinking about, okay, do we want to have an assessment? What do we want? Again, it's starting with what we hope our students will learn, trying to identify what those learning outcomes would be, creating that tool that we want to use to collect that information, and then us either reviewing it right away or at least every semester, really encouraging the career services staff to look at the information that's coming through, look at the assessments, so that way we can make tweaks and changes if we need to. And I know Aaron shared that in their department, they really try to standardize the assessment, and we do the same thing as well. So within our team, obviously, there's more than myself. There's other people that are presenting workshops. And so we really want to make it so that way, we're not being, I don't know how to explain this. We don't want to be like stuck in a box. Like, we appreciate everybody's creativeness, and how we want to respect everybody's individuality. I can't say that word right now. I'm having a hard time with words. And we all know people present differently, but at the end of the day, right, if I was going to do a LinkedIn workshop, or my colleague was going to do a LinkedIn workshop, we want to make sure that no matter who presents, we're all still hitting the core foundational things that we want our students to learn, but how we present it might be different, because we're different people and we present different ways, and we might elaborate more on one space because we feel really good and comfortable about that. And that's kind of just our own uniqueness. But anyways, I guess I can talk about this for long, but yeah, that's kind of what we do and how we try to assess learning that happens outside of the classroom. And again, we not only do it with our workshops, but we also try to do it and think about the programming and the events that we put out. We were very strategic when we did our internship program, and we're kind of using that to see As you mentioned, Roxanne, we have an experiential and community-based learning committee. And so right now, a big discussion that we had last year, and that's kind of bleeding into this year as well, is how can we develop a standardized assessment that faculty can use across all areas on our college so that we could better assess what is happening in the space of ECBL. So that's kind of what we're hoping to move forward. I know that we've utilized the CART team. Julie has come into some of our meetings and had this discussion, and really it made us think about some things and how we can maybe add on and kind of further develop it. But I think everything is kind of, it all builds off of one thing, right? I know Roxanne, you shared like, what's one thing you want to share or leave with other people? But for me, it's always don't be afraid to start, and knowing that it's not perfect. Like what we do is never perfect. But our goal is to try to assess if we can, knowing that we can build off of it and just continuously assess even what we're doing to make it better. So
I love that. That's so awesome. Can you think of an example, Izelle, of one particular workshop where you got the feedback from the student forums and then based on that assessment made some changes?
Well, one of the things that came to mind is actually like our opportunity fair. I haven't really spoken to that in here, but our opportunity fair, we did one of our zones, because we have a passport. Our last zone is the assessment zone. And so if people completed an assessment, then they entered into a giveaway. I don't think we can use the word raffle. Entered into a giveaway. And so and we actually got some really good feedback on that one year. We assessed not just our students, but we also assessed our employers too. And so with some of the feedback, some employers shared, how maybe they wish that some students were a little bit more prepared. So one year we actually create like infographics, and we sent that out before events, hoping that that information would then be shared with students. We also got some feedback from students one year that talked about how they wish they saw more employers in like the IT field or something like that. And so that made us rethink how we were accepting employers. So we actually do have caps on the number of employers per industry, right? So rather than having like 10 home healthcare agencies coming in, we've put a cap on the limit just so that we can diversify. And that's information that we include in our email that we send to employers, that it is first come, first serve, but we also are selective and we do have caps, so that way they understand that just because they've submitted something, it doesn't guarantee that they are able to participate, because we do try to diversify the employers as much as we can. So those are just some examples that I can think of right off the bat, where based off of the feedback that we were given either from our students or the employers, how we were able to take that information and then make those changes so that we can kind of do things differently and a little bit better for our participants the next round.
Oh, absolutely. I love that. I love how you're utilizing those assessment pieces of data and then implementing them in real life scenarios that are making these big changes. So that's awesome. Thank you, Izelle.
Thank you.
So again, if you have questions, pop them into the chat, and we will have a few minutes, I think, at the end for questions. But we do have one more panelist, and I'm excited to pass it on over. So I'm very thematic. I have to make sure everyone gets their few minutes of assessment day fame. Okay, our last presenter is from Student Services. This is Ariel Clifton, and I was lucky enough to get to work with Ariel this summer during my assessment contract and learned about the cool things that she's doing. So I don't want to step on her gown. I'm going to let her share her own news with you. So Ariel, I will pass it on over to you.
All right, thank you so much. So hi everyone, I'm Ariel Clifton, and I'm actually under STEM Connect, but part of my role is also doing, it's started as a grant funded position that included doing financial education. And although I'm under STEM Connect, our financial education program, which we named GCC Money Talks, is for the entire campus community. And during the pandemic, we went into like the virtual sessions, and even just open things up to the public, because it's like, it's live online, why not, you know? So, and actually this spring we'll be celebrating 5 years. So we're wrapping up, coming into completing 5 years. So we launched in fall 2019, which is when I came into this role. And at that time, I thought that students would come to a workshop series. So I had a pre-assessment and then a post-assessment for those that attended, you know, the workshop series, all of them. I had, you know, well, let me say that I think every role that I've been in, we always seem to need data for some for some purpose. And so even though I had not really worked in depth with assessment, I'd had like a supporting role in, you know, academic departments that worked in assessment. So I had some sort of peripheral knowledge, but also every role I've been in, always we had data that we needed to collect and use. And I knew that, you know, being a grant funded, we were definitely going to need data to, you know, substantiate, hey, what are we doing? What progress are we making? And things like that. Then going into the second semester, which was spring 2020, I'd had feedback that suggested maybe doing individual sessions and start to shift. And I wasn't sure exactly how we were going to shift the assessment. So I kind of just continued to use what we had been using. I figured, okay, we'll figure this out, but for now, I'll just keep using what I had been using. And then, like everybody, we got interrupted. And over that summer, you know, just worked on developing a Canvas, worked on developing, furthering, you know, those individual sessions. But as part of it, also worked on having a quiz and survey device for each of the modules. And eventually it, you know, became 5, which are now fairly standardized. You know, not like standardized in the sense that those are the ones that I typically offer, and that's kind of like, you know, our program offerings, but not standardized in the sense of like, I'm always learning more. And so much like, you know, as I was saying, that sometimes different presenters, it's almost like, you know, like I'm hearing more about like, you know, your future self, you know, you're not the same person each time because you keep learning new stuff. And so I'm always bringing, you know, whatever else I can add, you know, or however else I can engage students. So, but there's still certain key things that I want to be sure are always in each of them. And so I'm asking certain questions, and was able to also take that Google form and make it into a Google quiz where they can actually view score. And I encourage them to aim for 8 out of 10, where they can actually go back and it's built in where it actually gives them feedback, you know, yes or no. So even if they guessed right, they're still getting feedback on why that was the right answer. Then it was actually just about this time last year, during last year's fall assessment day, that I recall Julie in one of the sessions that I had attended, she was asking if there was just one thing that you wanted students to know about your topic. And it just kind of like sort of planted a seed in my mind. And it was kind of already, you know, something that was like, you know, I guess a growing awareness for me that, you know, how, you know, I'd been doing a session on keeping education costs and student debt down, but more and more other things that were kind of coming to my attention, like there's a lot of attention to the student debt crisis, but what is not so well known is that a big issue with student debt crisis is actually many people that owe small amounts of money, but they are struggling to pay it back because they didn't graduate. And so kind of out of, you know, like these different seeds, and something else was kind of watering it, I was like, maybe we rework the keeping education costs and student debt down and make a smart borrower campaign. And so, you know, since last spring, that's been like a big focus area. But let's see. And then, as I was saying, I've worked kind of on the periphery of assessment, but not directly worked in it. And then I am also part of a professional association of financial educators in higher education, and they'd offered a masterclass on, you know, assessment and evaluation of your financial education program. And I thought that I was doing pretty good. And then when I came out of there, I was like, oh my God, there's so much that I didn't know. And I felt like my self-esteem kind of went down to the basement. And I was like, okay, because like you don't know what you don't know. And I was like, okay, maybe I should also connect with our assessment team. So I start reaching out to Julie, and then over the summer, met with you, Roxanne, and Brandon as well. And I was, pleased to hear from the assessment team that even though I didn't speak the language of assessment, that I had been doing assessment all along and I wasn't doing a bad job, And later on, actually, the person who led that masterclass wound up becoming, I also participated in our association's mentorship program. And he was my mentor. And he was like, no, you're doing fine because you're doing something. He's like, that's like higher level stuff, and stuff like that. What they were trying to get across is that everybody should be doing something, and so really I have been at least doing that. And then out of those conversations, it kind of brought us to what I'm also offering now, which is some of the conversation circled around how part of what I'm trying to do is kind of bust a lot of the student money myths. And, one of the conversations was like, well, what is the starting point? And I was like, well, there's not one starting point. They all kind of come into different sessions based upon their interests. But that once again, there was like a little seed had been planted. I started to kind of, circle around now. So, well, what if I did do a presentation on student money myths, and I could start to get in front of classes and clubs and programs? And so that's one of the things I'm doing now. And that too, I'm actually using Mentimeter. So it's a quiz style presentation, but that's helping me to grab the sort of pre-assessment data. And then at the end, I'm asking them for, not asking them all of the questions we cover, but I'm asking for the ones that I felt like these are the ones that I want to really focus in on. So that then I've got both a pre and a post. And, hoping that they also want to dive in further into money talks and learn more about financial education, but also feeling like, well, even if they don't, if I can at least get, in front of them and help them understand and avoid some of these common money myths, because their college is expensive enough. And when they're doing things like, using a credit card to pay their way through school, which, and the reason I mention that is there's an association, well, I should say an organization rather, that does a yearly survey of student financial wellness. And their research has found that 25% of students are using credit cards to pay their way through school. And I don't mean like a credit card, like just I'm paying my books and then I'm going to pay it off. I'm talking about like, continuing to add. Yeah, it's a very expensive way of paying your way through school. We don't want to see students doing that. We know that some of the others are, some students don't realize that they're borrowing. I had a colleague that right before meeting with me, she was like, I just got off the phone with a student and they said, I don't owe any money. I only got money from FAFSA. Some students do not understand that their financial aid package does include loans and that they've already started to borrow, and you can't really track your borrowing if you don't know that you already are borrowing. So that's kind of where we've come from, and I continue to do, the other presentations have, their quiz data as well, and just continue to grow the program. And the newer one, I'm also seeing that it's like, oh, I get quicker feedback where I can see like, oh, so they still didn't quite understand interest. Maybe I need to explain that better, or, and things like that. So this has been really nice where I can have much quicker feedback on it and kind of keep on tweaking things a little, here and there.
That's awesome. So Ariel, what method do you find the most successful with students? Are you giving kind of like Izelle the assessments at the end, or how do you incorporate that into the money talks?
For the presentations, it's at the end, and that's also, a lot of students come either for extra credit or their honors free choice activity, and that's also how I'll coordinate the attendance verification, because I just asked that question on there. I have a Money Talks Canvas as well, so there's replays available, and the quiz and survey is there. So even if they can't come to the live online, and the Smart Borrower is now also available on demand in a similar way, where when somebody registers, the link for the replay is right there. And then I also do follow up with an email. Like as I was saying, the student money myths presentation is brand new this semester, but we've had I want to say like about five or six that I've done now. So, just been able to kind of tweak and improve and, enjoying doing that, enjoying getting, in front of students that otherwise I might not. One of the challenges to financial education is that, and probably it's true for many other subjects as well, is, we probably have all had that experience of like, we don't know like how much more there is to know about subject until you're in a class, and then suddenly you're like mind blown. Well, one of those challenges with financial education, or a lot of times trying to make it more accessible to students, a lot of times I say leveling up your money know-how. But even so, regardless of how I phrase it, some students, the students who are already interested are the ones that tend to come. And the students who need it the most are often the least likely to come. So that's, I think, another benefit to getting out in front of classes, because they can get in front of students that otherwise might not have this exposure at all. And hopefully it, then makes it a little more accessible, where at least it's more on their awareness, like, oh, I didn't realize, that's part of my story. I started wanting to be good with money, and I struggled, I made mistakes, and then I just said, I'm just no good with this. And thankfully some things shifted my perspective, but at the time I didn't know that financial education was a thing, and that's kind of how it is,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Let's give one big round of applause for all of our presenters. They can hear you, even if you're muted. They know it. They feel it in their hearts. All right. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or to throw one of our presenters under the bus and let them answer as well. Or again, feel free to throw a question in the chat, or you can private message me in the chat, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have. But I think one of the takeaways from all of our presenters is there are many resources available to support you in your assessment journey, whether it's something that is a small formative assessment you're doing in your class, or it's a huge event that you're hosting for the whole campus. We are here to help you get the feedback that you need to make sure that the experience for you is beneficial, that you're learning and growing, and that the experience for students, to make sure that they are learning, kind of the whole point of assessment, is continuing on. So without further ado, if there are no other questions, just our closing events. Thank you so much for attending. If you are hankering for an amazing magnet or sticker with our cool assessment logo designed by Karen Bird, please reach out to our Padlet, complete that Padlet, and tell us one assessment thing that you learned. Make sure to complete your assessment form showing that you participated today. That helps us to assess how well assessment day went, because we're nerdy like that. We're going to keep doing that. All right, if there are no other questions, then thank you so much for coming. And Julie, any final words?
I have to say, I'm just sort of a little bit blown away by everything I heard. I mean, I think in my role, I don't often hear some of the specifics of these projects. I've been working with Ariel, so I knew about her work. I've talked at times with Izelle, but I'm not always in the midst of this in the ways that department assessment coordinators or the assessment developers might be. And I think the biggest takeaway for me was how, despite the fact that some of these were curricular and some were co-curricular, and they were in very, very different settings, the structure of the work that everybody was doing is the same. The process was the same, and the passion we heard for student learning, which is the most important thing, was absolutely the same. And so I have to say, literal little goosebumps listening to everybody talk and share. And it's also making me think, what else amazing is happening on this, amongst our colleagues in this space. And this is where it's so important for us to document this work, to really showcase, how much we're doing to support student learning, because it's incredible. Thank you to all of you. And I will say, those of you who presented, you do not have to post on the Padlet to get your sticker or your magnet. We will give those to you for free, because I think you worked hard enough already. But I appreciate all of you coming and presenting. I appreciate Roxanne for hosting this session. And for everybody who celebrated Fall Assessment Day with us today, or who will be watching it asynchronously later, because we definitely have to push this session out to lots of people, because I really feel like our institution would benefit from hearing you all speak and share.
Awesome. That's a wrap. Thank you so much.
Happy Assessment Day, everybody.